Have you ever felt this? Even though you believe you are doing everything right, life suddenly turns around and pulls you into paths you never chose. The harder you try to hold on to everything, plans, people, results, the future, the more it slips through your fingers like sand. The most scary thing is not the big change itself. The most scary moment is when you realize there are things in life that do not follow your wish, no matter how strong you are, how smart you are, or how hard you try. And then you ask yourself, so what am I supposed to do now? Why does the more I try to control, the more worried I become? Carl Jung had an answer totally different from everything you were ever told. He believed that worry is not the enemy. Worry is a signal, a gentle reminder from life that you are trying to control something that was never meant to be controlled. Like a door quietly shaking to let you know you are standing on the wrong side.
This video does not come to tell you that you need to be stronger, need to control better, or need to try a little harder. It comes to bring you back to a truth Jung saw with total clarity. You cannot control life, and the effort to control it is exactly the reason for worry. Are you ready to step into this journey? Number 1. The power of those who know how to give in to life. Number 1. The power of those who know how to give in to life. There is a simple yet disturbing question that follows many people their entire lives. Why is it that the more I try to control life, the more worried, tired, and powerless I feel? Carl Jung answered this question with a truth that is hard to accept. You cannot control life, and it is exactly this effort to control that lies at the deepest root of pain. You cannot control life. Stop worrying. Not as a comforting piece of advice, but as a clear mental instruction.
According to Jung, pain does not come from situations, but from the mind's fight against what is bigger than its power to understand and control. The mind always wants life to move in a straight line according to plan, on time, matching what we expect. But life does not work by that logic. It moves through cycles, turns, and hidden forces that reason cannot catch. When the mind tries to take the wheel, it forces life to follow its will, and when life does not agree, worry appears. Not because you are weak, but because you are fighting something that cannot be controlled.
Jung once said with very clear words, "What you fight not only stays, but will grow in size." The more the mind fights, the tighter reality feels. The more you try to control, the more reason worry has to exist. Here, Jung speaks of a concept that is often misunderstood: giving in. Giving in is not quitting, not saying whatever happens, happens. Giving in Jung's way, is entering a different way of living, where the ego no longer sits in the main seat. Those who know how to give in are not weak. They simply no longer allow the ego to control the whole of life. They do not turn what I want into the highest law. Instead, they listen to the quiet movements of life and of themselves. Imagine someone holding the steering wheel during a storm. They grip so hard their hands go numb, eyes wide with fear of going off track. Meanwhile, the one who knows how to give in does not let go of the wheel, but relaxes their grip.
They allow the boat to move with the waves, changing slowly instead of fighting the whole ocean. Giving in is not losing your power. It is shifting from force to working with life. The difference between quitting and giving in lies here. Quitting is an act of sadness. You stop because you have no strength left, no hope remaining. Giving in is an act of knowing. You see the limits of the ego and allow a bigger order to lead you. Those who quit pull away from life. Those who give in enter life more deeply, but with a different kind of presence. There is a common story Jung saw many times in therapy. A person tries to force their job along a perfect straight path, study the right subject, work at the right company, move up at the right time. Every unexpected turn is called a mistake. Every slowdown is seen as failure. That person lives in constant worry because life keeps moving away from the plan until they become tired and are forced to stop. With no strength left to control, they begin doing what they once avoided: listening. And it is exactly in those turns that they find work more matching their nature. Meet people more like their own soul. What looked like a mistake turns out to be the real path. When you stop trying to control everything, this does not make life easier on the outside, but it makes life lighter on the inside. You still act, still choose, still take duty. The only difference is that you no longer carry the false idea that you must control every result. And when that idea breaks, worry breaks with it. If you are in a time where every try to control only leaves you more tired, maybe that is not a sign that you need to try harder, but a sign that you need to give in the right way. Not to quit, but to move into a more grown-up way of being, where you work with life instead of fighting it.
And if these words feel right to you, stop for a few seconds, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what in my life is asking for me to give in, not for more control? If that question leaves you silent, let the silence lead you into the next part of the journey. And if you wish to go deeper, stay, because this is only the first door. Number 2, when you stop fighting the flow. When you stop fighting the flow, there is a very small moment that follows right after you stop believing you can control life. The moment you begin to realize just how hard you have been fighting the flow, not through big actions, but through constant low-level worry, not paying attention, and the feeling that you must always do something so things do not slip away. If the previous part was the ego letting go of the wheel, this part is the realization that swimming against the war is what has been making you tired.
In Jung's view, life is not a series of separate events, but a steady flow of life energy. Energy is not just physical. For Jung, it is the force that moves the whole mental life, desire, feeling, growth, and even need at hard times. This energy is always moving, always looking for a way out. When you live in line with it, life feels smooth, even when it is not easy. When you fight it, the energy does not go away, it becomes blocked, and worry is the signal of that blockage. Many people think worry comes from situations, work, money, relationships, a future they are not sure of.
But Jung looked deeper. He saw worry as an inner tightness that starts when a person tries to stay still while the flow of life has already changed direction. You hold on to an old version of yourself, a known path, a plan that once gave you safety, but the energy has moved away. Life force no longer flows that way, and instead of moving with it, you fight. The more you fight, the stronger the flow becomes. The more you tighten, the more tired you grow. Jung once wrote a sentence that is simple but very true. Mental trouble is always a replacement for real pain. When you do not allow yourself to go through natural change, the needed pain of letting go, of not knowing, of changing your life, worry comes up as a kind of fake pain. It does not move you forward, but it does not let you stand still either. It keeps you stuck in the middle. I once heard the story of Anna, 32, a manager in New York. For years, she believed she was living her dream job. But over the last year, every time she went to the office, her body fought back. Tight chest, heavy breathing, tired mind. She tried exercise, quiet sitting, reading help books to control her worry. But the harder she tried, the tighter it became. Only when one morning she looked at her screen with no thoughts, unable to start work, did Anna admit the truth. Her life energy had left this place. The flow had shifted, but duty and a proud mind kept her there. When she allowed herself to quit and step into a time of not knowing what comes next, the worry went away very fast. Not because every problem was fixed, but because she had stopped fighting the flow that was already taking her somewhere else. There is a Jungian idea rarely noticed but very important here: joining together. It describes a state where the thinking mind no longer keeps itself separate from the movement of the hidden mind and reality. You no longer force your own will on everything, nor do you just become lazy. You take part in the flow, listen to it, change with it. In this state, life does not need to be controlled. It shows its goal on its own. Imagine someone standing in a river. When the water moves faster, the natural reaction is to struggle, fight, try to stay in one spot. But the more you struggle, the more your feet slip,
the stronger the pool becomes. The one who understands the river relaxes the body, leans with the flow, and allows the water to hold them. They do not let the river decide everything, but they do not fight it either. Life works the same way. Often what makes you sink is not the event itself, but how you fight it. The main message here is simple. Though the mind hates it, fight less. Many things will fix themselves. Not everything in life needs to be fixed through action. Some parts only ask that you stop swimming against the water. Stop forcing answers to show up. Stop asking that you be okay in the old way.
When you do, the flow of life begins to do its work, slowly, quietly, but exactly. And you may notice something unexpected. When you stop fighting the flow, life suddenly feels more open, easier to breathe, as if an inner door has opened a little. This is not a miracle, but the moment you return to your own natural beat. In that moment, peace does not need to be searched for. It finds you. If you have ever felt a moment like a river changing path, where you loosened your grip just a little and life became lighter, wider, easier to breathe, share that story in the comments. Maybe your experience will be a small light for someone still struggling in the water, not knowing that all they need to do is relax and let the water carry them. Number 3, letting go as the hidden mind's self-healing process.
Number 3, letting go as the hidden mind's self-healing process. And when you begin to feel the natural breathing beat of life, a beat that does not need forced effort, you arrive at a deeper layer Jung called the hidden mind's self-healing process. Here, letting go is no longer something you choose to do, but something that happens from inside, like a quiet self-fixing system protecting you from what has already finished its job in your life. Jung believed the hidden mind always tries to bring a person back to inner balance, and one of its quietest ways is taking energy away from what no longer fits. When a job has finished its goal, when a relationship has taught you its lesson, when a version of yourself has reached its final limit, the hidden mind begins to take back the energy that once fed it. No noise, no news, no warnings. It simply leaves like light leaving a room at the end of the day. The ego never accepts this. The ego sees less energy and thinks it is a failure. The ego feels empty and thinks it is a loss, but the hidden mind is doing exactly what it must, fixing you. Jung once said, "The hidden mind is not just bad by nature, it is also the start of the highest good." What you see as an end is sometimes the hidden mind pushing you away from what has finished its task so you can move closer to what truly fits your nature. A forest can only grow again when fallen leaves and old trees return to the ground. Nature does not hold on to what has finished its job. It allows it to break down, preparing the ground for new growth. Humans do the opposite. When the hidden mind takes energy away from something in our lives, the ego gets scared and calls it loss. But falling away is not the end. It is to be born again. I once saw a clear example. My friend Claire was in a relationship that looked steady for 4 years. No fights, no cheating, no trouble. Yet over the last year, whenever she was with her boyfriend, she felt an emptiness she could not explain.
Talks that once joined them now sounded empty. Nights together no longer felt safe, only leaving a quiet tiredness she could not understand. She told herself it was just a phase. Tried harder, loved harder, tried to start the feelings again. But the more she tried, the more tired she became. Until one night, sitting in silence at dinner, she suddenly saw the truth clearly and softly. Her life energy had left the relationship. Not because anyone was wrong, but because the relationship had finished its task. The energy had moved, but the ego was scared. Afraid of loss, afraid of wasting 4 years, afraid of stepping into emptiness. Only when she let go did peace return. Not because sadness went away, but because she stopped fighting a fixing process the hidden mind had started a long time ago.
This is also clearly shown in old stories through the tale of Persephone. When she was taken into the world below, the world above turned to winter. Life looked gone, empty, cold. But winter was not a punishment. It was a natural cycle of change. Persephone returned each spring carrying new life, new growth, the greens that winter had prepared the ground for. Because she had to leave, the world could be born again. Letting go at its deepest level is making space for a new spring in your life, even when the ego sees only winter. And the strange thing is, the hidden mind is never wrong. It only takes energy away from what no longer helps your growth. But the ego sees that leaving as a crash. The ego holds on to old habits, old jobs, old relationships, hoping that a little more effort will bring everything back as it was. But what has finished its part never comes back. It only waits for you to see the truth so healing can happen. The message at this level is clear.
You are not losing something. You are being made new. Every time the hidden mind takes energy from something, it opens the door to another life cycle waiting for you. And when you have the heart to let go at the right moment, you will see that what looked like winter was only the start of a spring the hidden mind prepared a long time ago. Number 4. Every fear is an invitation from the shadow. Number 4. Every fear is an invitation from the shadow. There is something you will realize once you understand that the hidden mind is always fixing you with small detail. What you call fear does not come from the future at all. It comes from a very different place, what Jung called the shadow, the soul's hidden side. And when you stop fighting the flow, when you begin to see that life energy knows exactly where it needs to go, you will also feel a deeper truth. Every worry you believe is looking forward is actually pulling you back toward hidden parts inside.
In Jung's words, the shadow is not evil. It is what you do not want to look at. Hidden fears, avoided memories, wounds that once made you small, judgments you point at yourself but have never named. These do not go away when ignored. They simply work behind the scenes, leading your feelings, reactions, and the steady worries of life. Jung wrote, "Until you make the hidden mind known, it will lead your life, and you will call it fate."
Avoiding the shadow does not wipe it out. It makes you live as though a hidden force is driving your life through scary paths you do not understand. What makes you worried is not the unclear future. The future itself is not naturally scary. What makes you shake are unhealed parts of the past. A person afraid of failing is not truly afraid of a mistake, but of the shame once put in their body during childhood. A person afraid of being left alone is not afraid of being apart, but of the emptiness born of years without emotional safety. A person afraid to start something new is not afraid of the new, but of feeling small and helpless like a child again. Worry is the shadow speaking in the language of the future about things that belong to the past. Modern brain science describes a similar thing. The brain's fear center cannot tell the difference between a real threat now and a scary memory from the past. When an old memory is touched, the brain acts as if danger is happening now.
That is why you shake in safe situations. While you worry about things that have not happened, the body acts on the past, while the mind believes it is a sign from the future. Brain science calls this emotional memory coming back, and Jung called it the shadow knocking at the door. I once heard the story of a woman named Elena. She always said no to better jobs, even though people told her to take them. Whenever the topic came up, her body immediately felt tight, hands sweating, throat closing. She said she was afraid of big duty, afraid of pressure, afraid she wasn't good enough. But when she began working with a helper, the truth came out. The fear was not about work. It was the fear of an 8-year-old child who had been yelled at by her father for bad grades. The shame of that day, the shaking, the feeling of being a problem, the belief that she was not allowed to make a mistake, had been hidden for 20 years.
When a new job called, that memory came back and used the voice of the future to say, "Don't do it. You'll ruin everything." Elena was not afraid of the job. She was afraid of that hurt child being hurt again. Seen through Jung's eyes, worry is not the enemy. It is simply the shadow's message. Something in you needs to be seen. When you refuse to look, the shadow throws itself onto the future, making the world ahead look dangerous. But the future is not dangerous. Only hidden pasts are. What you call worry is an invitation to look inside. The hidden mind does not want you to be scared. It wants you to look at the parts shaking in the dark corner. The message here is clear. Fear is not a closed door blocking your life. It is a gentle, patient call from the hidden mind. Turn back and see what inside you needs healing. When you have the courage to look, worry goes away. When you dare to name it, the dark lights up. And when the shadow is made part of you, the future stops being a place to run from. It becomes a place you can enter with a heart that no longer shakes. If somewhere inside you a dark corner is quietly knocking, write the word release in the comments. No reasons, no stories, just one word. Sometimes one word is enough to show the moment you begin to gently loosen what you have held for too long and open a path your own soul has been asking you to walk. Entering the silent zone where the self leads the way. There is something else that quietly happens after you understand that fear is only the shadow knocking at the door. Inside you, a very calm, empty space begins to show up. Not the emptiness of loss, but an open emptiness. A space where the noise of the ego starts to settle, and you realize you are touching a deeper layer of yourself. This is exactly the doorway into this section, the quiet zone where the self speaks. In Jung's thought, the self is the hidden main center of the entire inner life, a form of inner intelligence that knows exactly who you are, where you are going, what fits you, and what has reached the time to leave. The self is not loud, does not give orders, does not fight for power with the ego. It only whispers. And exactly because the self whispers, most of us cannot hear it. The ego lives on noise, must do, must try, must prove.
The self is the opposite. It shows up only when you are quiet enough to listen. In worry, the ego shouts, but when you enter stillness, the self begins to speak. Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside wakes up." Worry starts when you look too much outward toward worst-case scenarios, toward what is out of your reach. Peace shows up when you look inward, toward the quiet movements of the inner world, where the self is still fixing your life in ways you cannot control. The worried person believes they must take control to be safe. The one who enters stillness realizes that nothing needs to be controlled at all to stay on the right path. A very simple image for this is a lake after a storm. When the wind is still blowing, the surface is full of waves and shows nothing. But when the wind stops, the lake begins to show the entire sky. The lake itself does not need to do anything. It only needs to stop being disturbed. Your mind is the same.
When the ego keeps making noise, you cannot see the path. When the mind becomes quiet, the path shows itself. In a Jungian therapy session, I once heard the story of a man named Julian. After a long time of tension in his marriage, he fell into such strong worry that he could not escape it on his own. He tried everything, reading self-help books, listening to podcasts, going to the gym, practicing fast meditation, watching help videos, even searching for answers in dozens of pieces of advice online. But the more he tried to fix things, the more messy his mind became. One day, his close friend told him to do just one thing: fix nothing at all. Simply sit still for 10 minutes every morning and watch the breath. No thinking, no expectations. The first 3 days, he felt even more restless. But by the 5th day, he found a new layer of stillness beneath the noise. It did not judge, did not give advice.
It only gave him a very gentle feeling that I know where I'm going, even though his thinking mind did not yet understand. A week later, he said the worry had faded like mist, not because the problems went away, but because he had heard the whisper of the self again, the very thing he had lost amid the noise of duty and expectation. What Jung wanted us to understand is this: the self does not need you to act in order to speak. It needs you to stop, not to keep fixing everything, not to force the present to be different, not to rush to fill the empty space with solutions or logic. When you become quiet, the self begins to lead you through very small signals: a sense of rightness, a gentle clarity, a quick feeling, an unexpected choice that still brings peace. The ego wants reasons. The self only needs silence to do its work. Brain science also offers a similar view. When the brain enters a state of calm, especially through slow, deep breathing, the front part of the brain, the center of clarity and choices, becomes active, while the fear center reduces its activity. Stillness is not only a spiritual state, it is a physical action that allows the brain to shift from reaction to awareness, from panic to understanding. What Jung called the self is exactly the part of us that can work only when the noise of the nervous system quiets down. If you want to try, begin with the simplest exercise. Watch the breath without controlling it. Watch thoughts without giving them meaning. Watch feelings without trying to fix them. When you step back and simply watch, the ego loses its hold. The self moves to the front. The final message is very gentle, but also very real. When you are silent, the path shows up on its own. No forcing, no trying, no worrying.
Because what leads you is not a scared thinking mind, but the self, the deepest part of you, the part that knows the direction even when you cannot yet name it. And exactly when you begin to listen to the whisper of the self in that quiet zone, you will realize an even deeper truth. Not everything that falls apart in life is a mistake. Some things we call failure are simply the secret language life uses to change the path. Number 6. The hidden order operating behind every failure. Number 6. The hidden order operating behind every failure. Life never moves things randomly. Even a mess has its own plan. This sounds gentle, yet it is one of the hardest truths of growing up to accept. Failure is not a full stop. It is a bracket. And inside that bracket is an entire rebuilding process happening quietly beneath the surface, whether you notice it or not. Most of us are taught that failure means we are on the wrong path. But in Jung's view, failure is often a signal sent up from the hidden mind to push you away from a turn that has finished its task. If you continue, you will be worn down. If you stop, you will be pointed in a new way. The problem is that the ego hates this. The ego wants to keep the old plan. It wants everything to be right according to its own image. It feels failure as a shame. But the hidden mind sees failure as a tool for change, a gentle push to change direction. Jung once said something that perfectly shows the nature of this change. There is no coming to awareness without pain. Failure is exactly the kind of pain through which our mind is forced to grow. One of the most clear stories of failure as a hidden plan is that of Steve Jobs. Many people know he was fired from the very company he started, but few look at this event through Jung's eyes. Jobs called it the most painful hit of his life. His ego broke, his name was ruined, and all plans of being a top technology leader suddenly ended. But within that mess, a new order began to start. He started Next, put money into Pixar, and most importantly, began to look at himself again. When he returned to Apple years later, he returned as a rebuilt person, deeper, clearer, and more creative. Without failure, there would be no version of Jobs the world loves. The hidden mind used failure to push him into the next phase, even though at the time he felt only mess, loss, and darkness.
Not everyone feels failure on the scale of Jobs, but the inner system is exactly the same. I once heard the story of a woman named Marissa. She spent 3 years preparing to open an art room, but only a few months after opening, the sickness hit. The room closed, debt went up, and all plans turned into nothing. She saw it as the worst failure of her life. But at that lowest point, Marissa began to paint again. Not for buyers, not for the market, but because it was the only thing that still made her feel alive. In that moment, she found a personal art style she had never dared to try before. 2 years later, that work made her one of the most talked about young artists. She said failure pushed her back to the center of herself, a place she had left for years while chasing success formulas. This is how the hidden order works. It pulls you out of places where your time is up. It makes you fall on roads that no longer fit you.
It causes plans to break when those plans are not truly your path. You call it failure. The hidden mind calls it change. One thing Jung wanted us to understand is this. You do not need to see the order for the order to exist. Many of the most important steps of your growth happen at moments that look like total failure, but failure is only the mask. Behind it lies a hidden map, quietly opening, leading you toward what fits your nature more closely. And when you truly understand this, the fear of failure goes away, because you realize you are not being punished, you are being led. Not every dead end is the end. Often it is simply life saying, it's time to turn. Remember this, failure does not close your doors. It only closes the doors that were not meant for you. What you see as loss may simply be preparation for a time the hidden mind has been planning for a long time, a time that when you look back, you will see that mess was merely dust covering a perfect plan.
If these lines allow you to see failure through different eyes, take 1 second to breathe, 1 second to receive, and 1 second to trust that you are being led further than you imagine. If you feel that truth, gently press like on the video, not just to support us, but to mark the moment you understand that failure was never the end. It was simply a call into the next chapter of yourself. Number 7. A new map appears only when you release the old one.
Number 7. A new map appears only when you release the old one. There is something most of us do not realize until we are tired by worry. It is not life that is working against you, but the old map inside you that has stopped working, while the ego still holds on to it as if it were the only thing keeping you safe. And it is exactly this holding on that makes worry bigger, weighs down the mind, and makes you believe you have lost your way. But according to Jung, the problem is not the path. The problem is the map. Jung once said, "We are not what happened to us. We are what we choose to become." But to become anything, you must step out of the known way that keeps you standing still. Humans naturally lean on what once worked, once succeeded, once gave safety. We hold on to old plans, old directions, old goals that once made us proud, even when deep inside, a part of us already knows they no longer fit.
Meanwhile, the hidden mind does not work on memory. It is not tied to old results or past success. The hidden mind constantly fixes, shifts, and quietly moves you toward what fits your present and future more correctly. And when a map has finished its task, the hidden mind does not break it. It simply takes energy away from directions that no longer lead anywhere. Worry is the small signal of this process. Not that you are weak, wrong, or going backward, but that life is telling you something very soft yet very important. This map no longer works. It is time to hold a different one. The clearest image of this process is trying to use a map of an old city in a totally new city. You stand at a corner in Chicago, but look at a map of London. Of course you will be confused. Of course nothing will match. But confusion does not mean you are wrong. It simply means the old map no longer fits the new reality. What makes you worried is not that the city is dangerous, but that the map is out of date. Only when you dare to fold it up and let it go can you receive a new map, the map of this part of your life. I once knew a woman who for years held tightly to the belief that she had to be strong at all times, never show needs, never bother anyone with her feelings. That belief once helped her survive a bad childhood, but as an adult, it became the map that made her build walls against those who wanted to come close. Whenever a relationship grew close, she felt trapped and pulled away. She believed she was not suited for love, but the truth was very gentle. Her emotional map was out of date. When she dared to let go of the belief that she must always be strong, closeness finally had space to enter. A few months later, she said that for the first time in her life, she felt peace being loved without fighting it. It was not that she changed too fast.
It was simply that a new map found room to show up when her hands were empty. This is exactly the state Jung described. The deepest part of you fixes life according to what better helps growth. The old map feels safe because you know the way, but the new map feels alive because it leads you where you must go. The issue is this: to receive a new map, your hands must be empty. Worry, in many cases, is just a reminder that you are carrying a direction that is finished. It is like the quiet sound of a door closing, not to trap you, but to open another one.
But when you fight it, when you force the old map to stay real, that fight turns worry into a storm. The strange thing is this: when you let go of the old map, life does not become clear immediately. Often there is a time of fog, like standing in mist. But within that mist, you begin to see directions the old map never showed.
You feel led from your deepest self, not through logic, but through gentle feelings, which Jung saw as the true voice of life. Life always has a map for you. You only need hands empty enough to receive it. Letting go is not failure. Letting go is allowing the hidden mind to lead you into a new chapter that the old map can no longer explain. And when you are brave enough to stop controlling everything, you realize that life never left you. It was only waiting for you to let go of the map you no longer belong to. When you reach the end of this journey, you may realize something that seems simple yet changes how you live. Life never asks you to control it. It only asks that you have the courage to be there. Every worry that once tired you was not a sign of weakness, but a gentle call from life to step out of an old way of living, one where you were constantly fighting, guessing, protecting, and holding everything tightly. And when you loosen your grip just a little, when you stop for exactly one breath to listen, you will feel what Jung wanted us to see. Life moves itself according to a deeper plan than any human plan. You do not need to chase it. You only need to walk with it. If what you heard today makes your mind a little calmer, makes you want to live a little lighter, that is not an accident. Maybe you have reached a time where life is quietly reminding you, stop gripping, start breathing, stop fearing, start seeing. And if you wish to go deeper into the journey of letting go of worry, listening to the hidden mind, and letting life lead you in the most natural way, subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who needs it. Not to prove anything, but to remind each other that when you stop trying to control life, life truly begins.